Thanks for taking time out of your Super Bowl Sunday for this important weather update here at One Nation Weather. Now, as I film this video, we've got an ongoing winter storm bringing tornado watches over parts of Louisiana into Mississippi. We've got severe thunderstorm warnings. We've had some tornado warnings over that region as well. I'll be timing out the rest of that threat, as well as this flood threat here over parts of southeast Tennessee, northern Alabama, northern Georgia, as well as into upstate South Carolina as well in this video. We've also got to look at the winter weather advisories, as well as winter storm warnings that extend from parts of North Texas Panhandle all the way in over there into Kentucky and southwest Ohio, with new warnings also popping up in southern New England. Everything in the next 10 minutes. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button to get me to 3,000 subscribers so I can give you more updates like this. Here we go. Here's that severe weather outlook. If you're here for the winter side of things, skip about, say, 6-7 minutes into this video. But as we look at that severe weather outlook, you can see we've got that level 3 risk from parts of far eastern Texas, but really we're watching now into parts of central Louisiana and south central Mississippi. That's where this is really beginning to verify here. With that 10% hatched tornado risk, that essentially means that within 25 miles of a point, there is that 10% chance of a tornado, and it could be EF2 or greater. And we're also watching the potential for some destructive hail in the same areas, even on into far west central parts of Alabama, watching the potential for hailstones about 2 to 4 inches in diameter, especially in that baseball size category there. So destructive hail, I would definitely move cars under a carport or garage if that is available to you there. And again, this evening we've got these storms already verifying here from parts of central Louisiana on over into parts of central, south central parts of Mississippi as well. Again, we'll continue to watch these storms throughout the rest of this evening because we're nowhere near done, as rounds of these will move through east central Mississippi, one trying to make its way into parts of western Alabama as we head towards, say, 7-8 o'clock this evening according to the HRRR. Also still some cells back on over here through parts of east central Louisiana, so that it's going to be very active over this zone that I've got circled here. And again, if you're watching the Super Bowl in this region, you might not even be alert, so make sure you're checking your phone, turning on some sort of weather app notifications if possible, so you're notified as these storms continue. And you can see these will progress into central Mississippi, central parts of Alabama as we head, say, 10-11 o'clock central time this evening. Just a big massive rain just overtaking pretty much all the way on over there into eastern parts of Georgia, into central South Carolina as well. We'll continue to watch these discrete cells that could still pop back up, and we're going to kind of get a secondary wave of storms to pop up a little bit later tonight, and we'll talk about those in a second. Still, though, through west central parts of Alabama, through southern Mississippi, even on down into parts of, say, Baton Rouge and New Orleans and Louisiana, I'm still monitoring those cells for you, and you need to be keeping an eye on that overnight tonight. As you can see, say 2-3 a.m. in the morning of our Monday here, we'll still have some cells trying to get going there, and those could be discrete cells. And look at how these fill back in. We kind of get a new warm front piece lifting northward, and we get enough energy here, and that's going to really help us with the boundary of the cold front moving in from the west. That's going to help to spark off new storms closer to the Gulf Coast from New Orleans and then into Biloxi, Mississippi, Mobile, Alabama, all the way up there into central parts of Mississippi and Alabama, though, as well as into the Panhandle of Florida, southern Alabama. Everybody in all those areas I just talked about need to be ready for these storms, but especially there in eastern Mississippi, I think these storms are really going to begin firing off and leading off our Monday threat. Here's that Monday severe weather outlook. You can see through Alabama, far eastern Mississippi, though, included in this as well, the Panhandle of Florida over into Jacksonville as well, through all of Georgia. Every single person in Georgia is under this level 2 risk as we go into our Monday, and most of South Carolina as well, and in fact most of Alabama as well. So we've got a big slight risk encompassing millions here. Tens of millions, in fact, as we make our way here into our Monday. Tornado outlook looks like so. We do have that 5% chance of a tornado within 25 miles of a point in southeast parts of Alabama, through central Georgia, even on over towards Columbia, South Carolina, and then back down to the Gulf Coast as well. So let's time these out again. Overnight tonight, we get those new cells that fire on off, especially through eastern Mississippi, but some in southern Alabama and the western Florida Panhandle. The threat kind of clears you into parts of Louisiana and Mississippi by the time we make our way towards 8-9 o'clock in the morning. But we'll still be watching those closer to the Gulf Coast of Mississippi, but especially through southern Alabama in that prime environment here. We talked about ingredients a little bit more in my morning update that I did today. And there's plenty of favorable storm energy here. But what's interesting is there's going to be just so many blobs of rainfall, and I know that sounds like a very, non-professional term here. But, to be honest with you, there's just a lot going on here, and it's going to be kind of hard to distinguish on this future radar exactly what is supercellular here. But it looks like what could be going on down there closer to South Georgia into Tallahassee, Florida through that midday time frame of our Monday, that could be severe. You can see we've kind of got that line there into parts of South Georgia. around 3, 4 o'clock. But also notice over there towards Nashville, there's that little band of storms firing on up closer to the actual upper level piece of energy. So there's still very heavy rainfall moving through parts of the Carolinas as well. I think it's mostly going to be heavy rain through a lot of the Carolinas. We'll see if that slight risk actually verifies there. We'll probably see some severe storms at some point throughout the middle to back half of the afternoon there. But again, it does look like a very heavy rain event, especially being the main concern through that region. And we'll watch the coastal Carolina regions as well as we head towards, say, 7, 8 o'clock Central Time Monday evening. And then eventually we start to see this work out of here, but not before maybe a few extra storms hit central South Carolina. Here's how much rain we're going to get using WeatherBell Maps free trial to these maps in the description. Here we go. In this area I'm about to circle right now, this is where I'm the most concerned for flooding, and again, that's pretty much in that flood watch zone. This is your Weather Prediction Center outlook. Anything in those yellows is at least an inch, and you can see we could also get that into the Florida Panhandle. But you know, these reds from eastern Alabama through Atlanta, Georgia, on up into Columbia, South Carolina, into Charlotte as well, on over to the Outer Banks of North Carolina. This whole region, 2 to 4 inches of rainfall expected. Some of those deeper reds trying to fill in there into eastern Georgia, as well as the upstate of South Carolina. Some spots maybe 4 to 5 inches at the high end there. Someone's probably going to see that locally high amount that hits 6 inches, though, so we'll really have to worry about the rainfall threat there as well. But here's what we got in terms of our snowfall side of things. Welcome into that winter weather part of this video. We've got heavy snowfall that's been continuing to verify there into the northwest Texas Panhandle especially. That's going to move through parts of Oklahoma, as it looks like at least a brief shot of it overnight tonight. By Monday around mid-morning, we're going to see snowfall through far southeast Kansas, but especially that Ozark region and into southwest parts of Missouri, where we have those winter storm warnings in effect there in that localized zone. The winter weather advisories continue eastward. HRRR actually trekking this low a little bit further south, so could we see some brief snowfall moving through places like Memphis or even Nashville as the storm heads eastward late Monday and into Tuesday? Not out of the question. But notice what we've got by the time we go into our Tuesday morning. Look at how that snowfall's a little bit heavier and a little bit further south than initially expected there in the northeast. Could this impact places like New York City with this solution, with very heavy snowfall? Not out of the question. But again, I don't think that's necessarily our main model that we've been seeing. This is a little bit of an outlier, this 18Z run that I've seen this afternoon from the HRRR. But here's your National Digital Forecast database snowfall totals. This is pretty much straight out of the National Weather Service office here. Those totals from northern Texas, an additional 2 to 4 inches through there, through central Oklahoma, and into some localized areas in southwest Missouri and northwest Arkansas, closer to 6 inches there. Though most of that 2 to 4 inch stripe will continue in that region. A little bit more snow there into far southern Indiana and far northern parts of Kentucky, where 2 to 4 inches will be possible. Otherwise, a minimal stripe until you get to the northeast, where those heavy snowfall totals verify. And again, the National Digital Forecast database still saying through northern Pennsylvania on over to the Boston area and southern New Hampshire. That's where those heaviest, 8 to 10 inch totals are going to verify. And if you look at the total snowfall here out of the HRRR, this is a little bit more of obviously a high resolution model, so we're going to see those heavier totals show up on here. I think someone down here potentially into far northern Tennessee, but especially into northern Kentucky, I should say, up there as well into parts of southern Indiana. We're really watching those totals that could get up close to 8 inches at the high end there, but again, it's very hard to tell exactly where this is going to go. And again, that first arrow I just drew is kind of where most of the models have been taking the heavy stripe of snow. But now we've got the HRRR saying that it could be questionable to go a little bit further south than that and include parts of New York City with up to about a foot of snowfall. So we really need to watch that snowfall closely. But for now, I do think based on what we're looking at, the National Digital Forecast database, that first snowfall solution I showed you is the one to trust a little bit more. Future wind gusts with the HRRR here. Last thing before this video is over. 20-30 mile per hour wind gusts picking on up overnight tonight and through midday on Monday. It's going to be some of these gusts that push through Kentucky, Tennessee, Mississippi, Alabama as we go late Monday and into the evening. Some of those are going to be upwards of 35, 40 miles per hour. The key, of course, always at the top of your screen, so you can always reference that if I don't mention your exact location. And you can see those greens picking on up, though, as the storm heads east. High elevations of western North Carolina and western parts of the state of Virginia, they're getting in on the worst of these gusts, 50 plus there. But a good, swath of some 40 mile per hour gusts heading off the east coast as we go late Monday night and into our Tuesday early morning. and then we'll also be watching some of those gusts closer to southern New England, which could peak out around 40, 50 miles per hour as well, making for some interesting conditions there with the snowfall aspect of things through parts of, say Connecticut, Rhode Island, and into Boston, Massachusetts as well. Again, please hit that subscribe button if you enjoyed this video. I don't normally do a couple updates in one day. I normally post just in the evening, but I had a morning update today as well. If you want that one, there's the worst of the weather going on and just my usual routine updates. Please hit subscribe and get that WeatherBell Trial in the description.